could sleep at night. Blew up for the 1,000th time. Guess I'm always lucky, right? Pop some shit, then fall behind. I jump the gun and take what's mine. Looking like you've seen a ghost, moving like a
Hello, welcome back to Hella Spooky. This is my podcast, one of them, and it's only been 2 years since I filmed my last episode. Today's episode is featuring cursed objects. I just recently went and watched The Monkey, so I wanted to talk about it, but I also wanted to dive into some stories, urban myths, legends of other cursed objects, and what those said objects have done. Today's shoutouts for the makeup I'm going to be wearing, you guys are going to see me apply in a minute, is the beautiful, I love this brand so much. This is Rebel Rouge Labs. Definitely check them out. I will have this down below in the description. This is their God and Monsters palette, so I thought that that was somewhat fitting for today, but is it not gorgeous? I went into these two shades here, Guillotine and Décolletage. Love this company so much. It is an indie brand. Definitely go check out her brand. And on the lips, I was sent this, although I am not sponsored. This is one of L'Oreal Paris's Color Riche in the shade Nonchalant. It is 133, and this has been my everyday go-to brown lip for months now. Like, I have used so much of this lipstick, that is what I have left. It is very, very loved. I actually created this look the other day when we went and seen The Monkey in theaters, and I loved it so much that I wanted to recreate it for this video and show you guys a little bit of like a subtle like red brown lip situation going on. Yeah, I really love how it turned out, obviously, or I wouldn't be recreating it. Like I mentioned, this past month we went and saw The Monkey in theaters. This is a film by Osgood Perkins, directed by Osgood Perkins, and this is when two brothers find a mysterious wind-up monkey. A series of outrageous deaths tear their family apart. 25 years later, the monkey begins a new killing spree, forcing the estranged siblings to confront the cursed toy. I honestly had so much fun watching this movie, and we went to our local AMC theater because, you guys, I had to get the monkey popcorn bucket, and I love him. Look at the key. I love him so much. It is such good quality too. This is my first popcorn bucket that I bought. It is rather pricey, but so worth it because he now sits on my Stephen King bookshelf. He is just gonna chill right here throughout the episode. But yes, you heard me correctly. If you didn't know already, The Monkey is a short story that was first published as a booklet included in Gallery magazine in 1980 by Stephen King, and then later it was revised and published in Stephen King's Skeleton Crew in 1985. And I have a copy right here of it. This is not a first edition, but it is a rather old, battered paperback that I absolutely adore and love. And it does have the monkey on it, although this is Skeleton Crew. This is a story collection. It has pretty iconic stories throughout. This is what featured The Mist, and The Mist has now been a movie for years, and it is loved, it is hated. Very mixed reviews on that one, and I feel like you could almost say exactly the same for The Monkey. I feel like overall story-wise, people would probably like The Monkey a little bit more. You wouldn't have as many mixed reviews, but you know, there's still those out there that don't really care for cursed objects. The Monkey was nominated for a British Fantasy Award for Best Short Story in 1982 and Best Horror at that time, which is really, really cool. I, of course, have read The Monkey and I absolutely loved it. We follow Hal, which you also follow in the movie. He is the main character, but we get to know where this monkey came from It was one of the treasures his dad, who was gone all the time, brings home. And it kind of sticks very true to the movie. Without spoilers, the movie does, I feel like, spend more time with Hal as a small child versus the short story does with how many pages are in this, like, I would say like 30-page short story. But Hal and his brother are seeing the real life horrors of twisting up this key on this monkey and seeing the deaths that are occurring. The short story then goes on to jump into Hal's future. The story then jumps to future Hal with his now son, Petey, and this monkey that they thought they got rid of is somehow back and tormenting and causing all of these deaths once again. And while I will give it to Osgood Perkins that I do feel like he stuck really closely to the short story in some senses, in some aspects, these like outrageous killings and just gory, gruesome scenes were incredible. It's just kind of a silly good time. What I will say is, from the advertisement, which is always amazing, if you are like me and you love Osgood Perkins, you loved Longlegs, and that was just phenomenally done. I was so excited that he got his hands on the monkey, and I think he executed it so well when it comes to the gore, the gruesome moments, taking such a morbid story and making it something fun instead of just dark. I loved that about it. I will say it does teeter into a little bit more silly than what I would have liked it to, because I felt like the short story itself had those dark moments to him, but it also is kind of like a wholesome father-son story at the same time, that I feel like that kind of played into the movie, but also teetered in directions that I wasn't really a big fan of. Hal does have a twin brother, and I'm usually not really a fan of the trope of having the twin siblings. I feel like this short story did amazing with that. With having twins, it did amazing. If they were, I think he just called him his brother. I don't even know if they were twins in the short story. I can't remember correctly. But I normally don't mind twins in a story if it's done correctly. But if it's this overused trope or moment, it's hard to talk about without spoilers. But if you see it, you understand what I mean, I'm sure. Those aspects and part of where the story went didn't leave me at a complete 5-star with the movie like I am with the short story, but it's still such a fun time. And I will say the advertisements, while they were amazing, like I said, what I will say about it is the advertising of this makes it seem like it's so gory and gruesome and it's just splatterpunk over and over and over again. That's what the whole movie is going to be. There's not going to be any like death to these characters or death to the story. It's just going to be these deaths over and over again. And although he did have a lot of really creative deaths in this movie, I really feel like he really dived into the story and made it more detailed. I felt like watching it, I was like, oh, there's a lot more of the plot going on here than what I suspected seeing the trailer and advertisements for this. So I really did appreciate that. You'll have to let me know if you went and seen it and what you thought, or do a little comparison too if you've read the short story. If you've seen it and you haven't read the short story and you love reading, definitely check it out. It is so good. I'm currently still making my way through the Skeleton Crew book, and I'm absolutely loving every single story I've read so far. I've of course read The Mist in the past, but this is my first time reading The Monkey, as well as many others in this collection, and I'm having a great time with it. I actually picked up the new edition of it with the new monkey on it, which is so cool. It is such a read. It is a feat to get through most Stephen King books, but I'm absolutely loving this so much and enjoying my time with it. And with that being said, I wanted to bring together this episode, being able to talk about this because it's one of my current obsessions. I just love it so much. I think the idea of cursed objects are just so exciting and there's so much you can do with it. And I wanted to explore that. I wanted to see other cursed items out there that maybe I haven't heard of, and I do feel like I'm going to circle back and talk about more. I just wanted to see how many I could fit while getting ready and talking to you guys, and I hope that you guys find it entertaining like I did. We talked about an infamous doll, we talked about a diamond, a mirror, a skull, and even a car. I know I'm looking rather cute. I had to do something with the bang situation to get this makeup look going because I've done nothing to my face besides skincare and my brows. Like always, or like in the past, all makeup is down below in the description if you are curious of like what I am using. I try to do a little bit of like the makeup shout out in the beginning, but it usually is just like the main eyes, lips situation. So all the other detail is in the description. So starting off this episode, I feel like I couldn't leave this certain cursed object out because she is just so infamous for a reason. She's an icon, she is a legend, and there's been many movies about her. You guys have probably already guessed Annabelle, and you'd be correct. This cursed little doll, this Raggedy Ann doll, has really made an impact on, I feel like, so many lives because of what has become of her. And the name may be familiar to you because there is actually movies based off of this doll. Annabelle is a cursed doll that eventually fell into the hands of Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were paranormal investigators. They really focused in and worked on a lot of possessions and also the possession of objects like a doll as Annabelle. Not only are the Warrens in the beloved Conjuring movies, which I personally absolutely love. I love them more than the Annabelle movies, personally. I tend to lean more towards possession stories of like a family member being possessed or a location being possessed and haunted versus an object. But they're still so interesting to me. And I absolutely love in the Conjuring movies and also the Annabelle movies, we get kind of a glimpse into the Warrens' basement room. And this was actually like a real room that they had in their house, like the real Ed and Lorraine Warren. They had a room that was locked off and sealed that had all of these items that they claimed were possessed or had some type of entity attached to them. Cursed objects, if you will. One in particular was Annabelle, and so the Annabelle movies came to be, telling the story, but they actually, while dramatized completely, they actually did follow closely to the story of Annabelle and how she was found. Apparently, these two roommates, they're nurses, Donna and Angie, have been living in this apartment for about 2 weeks, and so far, everything felt very normal to them, but there was this doll that was left there. But again, nothing abnormal's happening. Everything seems fine. But then they go on to say these abnormal and unexplainable things started occurring, like the doll moving. It also had them like questioning each other and being like, okay, you're messing with me. Like, why do you keep moving this doll? And then the other one being like, oh my gosh, I thought you were messing with me and moving the doll. When they started to suspect that there was actually something going on, that is when they reached out to Ed and Lorraine. I think the intent was to go into it as a, where did this doll come from? But then turn into a, how can you help us situation because we don't want this. And yes, there was still some who said that it was all a hoax and that they kind of caused more damage than good in their situations. But then that kind of makes me spiral into like, was there then an entity then? Like they're at least proving something with their journeys, whether they were able to help or not. And once Ed and Lorraine got there and started to look into Annabelle and try to figure out her history, they had told the girls that they were dealing with a conduit that is a demon from hell that was looking to attach to a living being. Meaning, if you keep this doll and you guys keep, not really to say that they were just like making light of it, but like they kept talking about it, they kept getting freaked out by it. And if you keep up doing that type of ordeal, you're kind of manifesting it and making it worse, is how they explained it. And that if they wanted to hand it over to the Warrens, they could deal with it and figure out if they could perform some type of like exorcism or if they would just have to lock it away. They apparently decided to do an exorcism on the doll for whatever reason, and it failed. It did not go as planned. And I think at that point, the girls were so scared that they passed the doll off to Ed and Lorraine and said, we don't want any part of this. And the Warrens have said that in this attempt to get the doll to their home, their vehicle almost crashed out and they almost died. They say that the entity or demon possessing this doll tampered with their vehicle to make this happen. Annabelle stayed with the Warrens for a while, and then I say more recently, but I feel like it's been quite a few years. She was then transported to a museum where she is at now, I believe. I wanted to say that she was also a part of the Conjuring house for a little while, but that might have just been a replica. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it has been reported that a visitor at the museum, I guess, like challenged Annabelle. I don't know, just saying like, oh, you won't do anything, and just kind of that type of taunting at her. And from what I gathered is once he left that museum, he lost control of his motorcycle, crashed into a tree, dying instantly. And although in the movies we get this creepy ass Annabelle doll, which I feel like is way creepier than the original, obviously, to make it a little bit more scary for the movies. The real Annabelle doll is actually a Raggedy Ann doll who sits in a locked box, and she is currently at the Warrens Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut. So if you ever want to pay a visit to Annabelle, that's where you can find her. And since we have mentioned Stephen King with the monkey, I have to mention Christine, the car. Christine is a book by Stephen King, and it is about a possessed car. But there's actually a real life possessed car called the Golden Eagle. It is a 1964 Dodge, and it has been accused of killing at least 14 people. The owner is Wendy Allen, and it was originally a police vehicle, she says, and not one, not two, but 3 police officers who drove this car all died in a murder unaliving situation. It's been reported that church members later vandalized it, and then they all died horrible deaths. Even a local teenager who was dared to touch the car and then did, ended up killing his entire family and setting his house on fire. And this is definitely one you can look more into to try to find the facts around this. I feel like a lot of it has had to have been from Wendy explaining the story and talking about it, but it's become so known that it has become some type of urban legend around that people still to this day talk about. Next up is the Hope Diamond, which is the size of a walnut. It's a pretty massive diamond, but would you want to own said diamond if you found out that the owners of it died from a tragic death? I found so many stories about this diamond and about the owners and how they died. I feel like there's so many different stories out there that I'm not really sure which is true, if true. But it's said that the stone was uncovered in India and sold to French royalty in the 1600s. But later it was stolen and sold to the Hope family. This was in London in the 1800s. Throughout history, it was passed on and on to different owners until it was finally locked up in the National Museum of Natural History in 1958. But confirmed owners of the stone is pretty impressive. On this list, we have Sultan Abdul Hamid, Pierre Cartier, King Louis XIV through the 16th, King George IV in the UK, and all said deaths are supposed to be from this stone, which is known as cursed. These deaths have occurred from a wolf attack, disease, murder, and unaliving. This next one is rather spooky for me because I love mirrors. I thrift so many mirrors and I have a grandparent, my mama, who has thrifted a bunch of mirror sets, and she eventually gave quite a few of the sets to me. So I have a lot of mirrors throughout my house. And there's just the idea of thrifting them and having them secondhand and not knowing where they came from. That is so spooky, especially when you hear about haunted or said cursed mirrors. This cursed mirror comes from Myrtle's plantation. The whole estate is found in St. Francisville, Louisiana. The whole estate is reportedly haunted, but this mirror supposedly contains the spirit of Sarah Woodruff and maybe two of her daughters. From history, from movies, you may have been aware of traditions where families will cover mirrors with sheets or some type of covering when a loved one has passed. That didn't happen with this one when Sarah and her two daughters died. The story told, or legend if you will, is that Chloe, a slave of this Woodruff family, wanted to get revenge on the Woodruff family, and doing so, she baked a cake and she filled it with poison. But only Sarah Woodruff and her two kids consumed this cake. This caused them to die and for their spirits to then go to the only one uncovered mirror in the estate. And visitors who go to see it say that they often see the family in the mirror trapped, and sometimes you can see the outline of a child's handprint on the glass. And lastly for you, I have the Screaming Skull of Burton Agnes Hall. Burton Agnes Hall was built during the Tudor period, and it is allegedly haunted by Anne Griffith. And people say since it was built, it's been haunted by Anne. You may be wondering who Anne is. She was one of the daughters of the man who built the house, and Anne loved the house. She loved this house so much so that after a violent mugging, her final wishes were to be entombed in this building structured house. I mean, it's already like, wow that they did it, but I'm not sure why, but they decided to just entomb her skull in the house. And supposedly the skull still remains in the house to this day, although nobody knows which room, which wall, or where the skull is located, although many have tried to find it, allegedly. Every time attempts were made to locate the skull to remove it, it is said that the ghost of Anne makes so much noise, like screaming, screeching noises, until the place is left alone and the skull is no longer searched for. She wants to remain there. I will say all of these cursed objects are all alleged cursed items. Who's to say if there's proof of these items actually being cursed or possessed, haunted by some type of entity out there? But it is fun researching and looking up these stories and sharing them with you guys. So everything I say is all alleged, and some of it might just be made up folklore and tales that people have kind of just added to add to the fun of spooking others for the story.
Everything you claim, bitch,